Welcome to Rise Untold, where the stories behind the spotlight come alive. At 87, Jane Fonda is no longer thinking about red carpets, flashing cameras, or movie premieres. She's thinking about something deeper, something final, her own goodbye. The Hollywood legend, the activist, the woman who once changed how America exercised in their living rooms, has now changed how she thinks about death itself, and she isn't leaving those decisions to chance. Jane Fonda has planned her final days, down to the very last detail. For her, this isn't about fear. It isn't even about fame. It's about meaning. It's about family. It's about facing the truth most people run from. In recent interviews, Jane admitted she's been preparing, emotionally, spiritually, and practically. She's been in therapy, not to fight despair, but to strengthen her bonds with her children. She wants her relationships to be whole, secure, and at peace before she leaves this world. She says openly, "I want to make sure that when I'm gone, the people I love will feel that nothing was left unsaid." For her, death is not the enemy. Avoidance is. And when she was asked about her burial wishes, Jane didn't hesitate. She won't be cremated. She won't be sealed in a heavy wooden coffin either. To her, both choices feel wrong. Cremation, she says, releases chemicals into the air. A coffin means cutting down a tree. Neither feels right for someone who has spent decades fighting for the planet. Instead, she has chosen simplicity. When her time comes, Jane Fonda wants to be wrapped in nothing more than a sheet, no headstone, no elaborate ceremony, just a field planted with drought-resistant greenery where nature can reclaim her body. She even knows where she will rest, beside Tom Hayden, her former husband, at Santa Monica's Woodlawn Cemetery. A quiet place, free of grandeur, yet full of history. This is not just a burial plan. It is a statement, a final act of rebellion from a woman who spent her entire life refusing to conform. Think about it. Jane Fonda, the Oscar-winning actress, the daughter of Henry Fonda, the face of an entire fitness revolution, the activist who was once labeled Hanoi Jane during the Vietnam War, could have chosen anything. A Hollywood memorial, a legacy, etched in marble, a headline carved in stone, but instead she chose silence, simplicity, and the earth itself. It shocks people. Fans expect legends to be eternal, to rest in grand mausoleums, to be remembered in stone and steel. But Jane is reminding us that true immortality doesn't come from a statue. It comes from the life you lived and the love you left behind. And she says it plainly, thinking about death has given meaning to her life. She divides it into 3 parts. The first 30 years, the second 30, and now, the final 30. Each act of her life like a play. And she knows the curtain will fall. That truth doesn't frighten her. It steadies her. In her first 30 years, Jane was searching, struggling with the shadow of her famous father, Henry Fonda. She admits she didn't know who she was, and her relationships often reflected that confusion. The second 30 years? That was fire. Hollywood roles, Oscars, marriages, divorces, activism that divided America. It was bold, messy, unapologetic, and now, in the final 30, it's about reconciliation, healing, acceptance, because when you acknowledge the end, you begin to live with clarity. In these final years, Jane isn't chasing Hollywood. She's chasing peace. She's surrounding herself with family, repairing old wounds, speaking honestly, and making sure the way she leaves this world reflects the way she lived it, on her own terms. This clarity even reshapes her activism. In climate marches, when she was arrested in her 80s, she smiled, because she knew time was limited. She wanted every action, every headline to matter. She wanted her legacy to be more than awards, It had to be a call to action. But behind the activism, behind the cameras, there is still a mother, a grandmother, a woman who has known heartbreak, loss, and regret. She doesn't hide it. She admits. Her life was not perfect, her marriages failed, her choices were often criticized. Her activism earned her enemies. But at 87, she carries none of it with shame. She carries it with perspective. And that perspective is why her burial plan resonates. It's not about death. It's about truth, about stripping away the noise, the performance, the expectations, about leaving the world as humbly as she entered it. For fans, this is hard to hear. Jane Fonda, the unstoppable force, preparing her final days. Yet maybe that's the very lesson. Even legends must plan their goodbyes. And maybe that's her final gift to us. The reminder that death is not just an ending. It's a mirror. It forces us to ask what really matters. It forces us to decide, how will we live if we know one day we too must leave? Jane Fonda has answered that question, with honesty, with grace, and with the quiet courage of a woman who knows exactly who she is. So when that day comes, she won't leave behind just movies or awards or fame. She'll leave behind a legacy of truth, of activism, of resilience, and of choosing meaning over spectacle. Her fans will remember Clute and Coming Home. They'll remember the workout tapes that changed fitness forever. They'll remember the arrests, the marches, the fiery speeches. But more than that, they'll remember a woman who lived in full view of the world, unafraid to grow, unafraid to change, unafraid to admit she was human. And perhaps that is what makes her not just a Hollywood legend, but a human one. Because if Jane Fonda, at 87, can face the end with such clarity, maybe we too can learn to face life with the same. Think about it. Most of us spend our days pretending the end is far away, as if ignoring it will somehow keep it from arriving. We avoid conversations about death. We bury ourselves in distractions, work, noise, endless scrolling. But Jane reminds us that denial doesn't give us more life. Clarity does. By looking straight at the finish line, she has found peace in the steps leading there. Maybe we too could live differently if we had the courage to admit that our time is limited. If she can plan her goodbye, maybe you can plan your beginning. Maybe you can take the first step you've been delaying for years. The dream you were too afraid to chase, the apology you never gave, the words you never said to someone who mattered. Jane shows us that waiting for someday is dangerous, because someday always runs out. Your beginning doesn't have to be grand. It just has to be real. One small act of courage can change the entire direction of your story. If she can forgive, maybe you can heal. Jane has been open about the fractures in her family, the regrets of broken marriages, and the weight of choices she once made. But instead of clinging to bitterness, she chose reconciliation. She sat with her children, worked through the pain, and said the words that needed saying. Healing doesn't erase the past, but it transforms the future. And if an 87-year-old legend can still choose to make peace, then what excuse do the rest of us have for holding on to anger? And if she can rise above fear and choose peace, maybe you can too. Fear whispers to us every day, "You're running out of time. You're not enough. You're too late." Jane shows us that fear only wins if you let it. Peace comes when you stop fighting time and instead walk with it. At 87, she doesn't measure her life by awards or applause anymore. She measures it by love, by honesty, by the quiet decision to leave the earth gently. So maybe the real lesson here isn't about death at all. Maybe it's about living, about daring to face the truth, daring to forgive, daring to begin. Because if Jane Fonda can do it, so can you.